Hello everybody. I'm going to say this to start off. First of all, hope you're all well and everything else. I'm not sure how well you can hear me because I've noticed that the last couple, or at least the last one I did this, it wasn't picking up the microphone noise that well, and I'm not sure if it was just my setup's wrong or whatever. But I am going to probably in the future try OBS. It seems to be more stable these days, so I might try the next stream the OBS, but I want to test it out first, make sure it works and everything else. So for today we'll have to go with this mic. Hopefully you can hear me. I will try and speak up as much as I can, take it from there, but bear with me while I just work on these things, and we'll take it from there. Hello Kevin, how's it going, dude? Welcome to the stream-o. I've got me coffee. Right, so again, hello everybody. Anyone that's joining, whether you're joining the stream or whether you're just you know, passing by on the video after the fact, I will put some links at the bottom of the video to other videos I've done on this particular series, and I'll go into detail in a moment. But so look for the comments after the stream and the links for all the different things we've been doing. I won't bore you with the whole backstory of what I've been doing since the start of this particular project. But what I will say is it's all to do with, let me move this outside, this guy. For those who are avid YouTube people, you've probably by now heard of Josiah Brock's Draw with JAZZA. And he does a Fun with Art channel, mostly, you know, between from animation through to just literally random art projects. And I know he's had a big upheaval, a big change in studio and all that kind of stuff, which has been cool and adventurous. And I'm looking forward to him starting to get back to, you know, his different art challenges and stuff like that, and obviously his streams as well. And anyway, he did this competition every month, used to anyway, where he would pick a subject, get people to draw with it, go, submit their own, their own take on that particular theme, based on the parameters that are set, and the winner would win a load of lovely little prizes. And one of them was actually one of his own shows or games or whatever, called Rogue Star, and it was a sci-fi based story. So I'm just trying to get this camera so you hopefully can see a bit more what's going on. Nope, not quite. Trying to get this exactly where it needs to be is quite tricky. Ugh. Try not to be too far out. I think I need to move this camera up a bit, I reckon, for next time. I'll do it for tomorrow. Anyway, and one of the competitions was this thing called Rogue Star, which is a role-playing game that he did some years ago. And with the Star Wars film coming out that year, he decided this would be a good opportunity to have a brand new competition based off of that. And you had to design a poster in a sort of Star Wars or epic movie theme style. And Rogue Star was one of them. At the time, I was fairly happy with my end results, but I definitely felt some of these items needed to be redone and rechanged. So last week, so let me just shift this over here for a moment. Last week, I was working on the little ship called a Space Knight. So I was working on this design here, which is the original design that came from one of the fans that were drawing it, that entered into the, that was watching that particular channel. This is one of the things that they come up with. I don't know if JAZZA come up with the idea or whether they did. I don't know. But all I know is this ship was one of the original versions of the ship in that particular story. So taking that concept, I drew this one for the competition. Whoops. It never stays on thingy. I drew this one for the competition. So let me move some of these other papers. I think it's just one too many sheets of paper and it's just making it not stay on there. There we go. There we are. Sorry about that. Yeah, so this is the one I did. I made some slight changes and made it just a little bit more interesting to look at, give it some grills and stuff like that. And for the most part, I was satisfied with it. But every time I look at it, and I look at it now, since then doing it in 2015, I see things that are not quite right, things I need to work on and make it better. So last week, reinvented the wheel, and this was the new version I come up with, and we was actually able to do that in the whole street, which is really kind of good. Really, I was really encouraged that got this done in one sitting, so to speak, and I'm really satisfied with it. I think there's still some things I could probably just change slightly just to make it fit better, but I can do that in Photoshop or whatever. So that's something that's coming at some stage. I don't know when, but at some stage I'll be doing that. And all of these ships and all these different character redraws, I will be updating and colouring to make a brand new poster. So look out for that. It's not in the immediate future, but because I've got other projects I've got work going on at the moment, but it will definitely be coming at some point. Certainly before September, when the competition for this one came out. I want to have it done by then, but we'll see how it goes. So anyway, so today, one of the biggest ships on here that I was not satisfied with my drawing of was this guy. And this is the main ship in the whole project. This is the Rogue Star, the actual ship that the whole thing is based on. And it's got a crew of about 4 or 5 people in it, I think, if my memory serves right. Plus they're obviously visiting and other ventures and things like that. And I was trying to get the perspective right. I was trying to get it all fitting correctly and working together as one unit, and it didn't quite feel correct. It just felt really off. The angles are off, and I didn't feel it was coming at you as I was hoping to do. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be redrawing this. I'm going to try and, as best as I can, excuse me, as best as I can, keep to this particular design of it. There might be some minor, tweaks just to make it look a bit sharper, a bit more, slick. But we'll see how we go with it. I have no idea how it's going to turn out. Hope it might go well. It might go badly, because this was not an easy ship to draw. I have to be honest. But also, you might notice I've done this on an A4 paper, so I didn't give myself a lot of space to add the massive detail that's here. So I'm going to actually do it on an A3 today. So I'm going to put this to one side for the moment. I'm going to put this over here. Oops, not this. This over here, out of the way. Oh, and one other thing as well is I've got some reference on here as well, which is really good. There's 2 bits of reference on here. The first one is just a basic angled ship. I don't know if you can see that very well. This one here. So just a basic coloured in version of the ship, and it does look like JAZZA drew this one. So this is actually a JAZZA's design ship. So that was that, and then I believe this was done by his brother. I could be wrong, and anyone that knows the story probably could correct me on this, but I believe that his brother, who's into these sort of things, made a 3D composite of the ship as well. And the design is actually quite good. I quite like the design as on a whole. I just felt it was very difficult to draw, and you know, I can always do some improvement. So that, not improvement, that's not really fair to say, but it could do with just some adjustments just to make it look a bit more swish. Right, so I'm just going to do one quick thing, which is to get a couple of, let's get my other glasses. 1 second. Sorry. Always need to remember to wear my more Mr. Magoo type glasses. Maybe put the other light on as well. It's getting a bit dark now. Get you some decent light. And you try and move this camera a bit as well if I can. So I'm just trying to get it so that you've got a really good, clear image. Sorry, guys. Oh, that'll do. That will do for me. Some space in my house a bit. Okay, right. Here we go. If you are watching for the first time, you can either sit and watch. That's fine. But if you do want to have a chat or say hi, or got any questions, feel free. If you haven't subscribed, if you like what you're seeing as well, and you haven't subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with any friends that you think who might enjoy it. And also, in case you aren't aware, YouTube have got this little bell that sends you notifications when I go live or when I upload a new video. And at the moment, I'm scheduling a new video every fortnight, so there should be one, I believe, this coming Tuesday. I could be wrong. I'll have to double check, but I believe the next one is this coming Tuesday. So yeah, the 16th. In fact, there is. So keep an eye out for that one. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it is. I think it's a Star Wars themed one, but I'll have to double check. But I'll put maybe I will, if I remember, I'll put a link at the bottom as well. Anyway, right. So without going on too much, let's see what we can come up with. Okay. So the first thing, in fact, let me get my other reference up. And I'll probably use this reference because it's got very, very clear all the different angles, so it's going to be easy to see what I'm doing with this one. So I think the first thing that I need to do is just get the general sort of line on it. So it's going to be coming sort of towards me a bit. And this is just the center of everything, so everything's on the center line. That's all I'm doing at this stage. There we go. Right. So far, so good. Now, because I've got to worry about the cell things here, I don't want the back too far back, so I probably want the back about here, which means I might need to move the line a bit. So I might have to move the line over a little, or at least give it a second line. Yeah, I think that's fine. So hopefully, I don't know how much of this you can see yet, but all I'm trying to do right now is just to get basically the 3D element. I'm not worried about any of the line work, any of the different parts or anything like that. I'm just trying to get the general sort of 3D aspect ready. So when I get to that point, hopefully it'll fit better and I'll know where I'm going. Now, funny enough, I was doing this piece a little while ago. There was when the RoboCop movie came out in 1990 or 91 or whenever it was one of those years anyway. Being a fan of sci-fi and loved RoboCop, I did this little comic strip called RoboBop. Obviously, I could never release it because I'd need to get some kind of permissions from the RoboCop people to say, yeah, it's okay to do a parody, although that's, it's a parody, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. But anyway, sorry, just trying to. I'm thinking as I'm going along. So if I do stop and pause, it's because I'm thinking as I'm going along, and I just need to take the little pauses to get my head around what I'm trying to say or do. Anyway, so I did this little parody of RoboCop, and it was quite, again, based on the time I did it, it was fairly decent. I was happy with it at the time. It had its flaws. It wasn't 100% perfect. Some of the artwork wasn't spot on, but at the time it was, for me, it was actually quite a I felt happy with the way it came out. And just for fun, I was redrawing that recently, just to try and use the skills I've been growing in, all the different developments that I've been making in my life and in my career, to try and do a better version of it. And like I'm doing now, where I'm just sort of lining it out and plotting where it's going and stuff like that. It initially didn't feel like it was much different. I didn't feel like the version I was doing initially was looking very much more, well, to put it bluntly, it didn't look like I was making a good improvement on the original version of it. And it was a little frustrating, because I know that my skills have grown since doing that, and it not feeling like it was to not feel like it was actually a better picture or becoming a better picture was, to say the least, a little frustrating. But in doing it, one thing I did learn is you got to be happy to just rough things out, put really rough, scratchy, rubbish lines on these things at the beginning stages. The rougher, in a way, and this is what I'm finding, this might be different for other people, but what I'm finding is the rougher it is at the beginning, the more chance you'll have it getting better at the end. As long as you don't try and fix the problem straight off the bat, let it be rough. Let it be rough. Let it be the roughest, most crummiest drawing possible at the beginning. But as you mold and shape it and go into it, that's when you start to add the what's the word I'm looking for here? No, I don't want to say add the detail, but as you go more into it, that's when you start refining it. So the things that were rubbish and off, you adjust it at that point, and then it becomes the better picture that you were thinking in the beginning. So that's something I kind of have learned a little bit. Right. So just before I go off to the next sub point on that, so don't, like I'm doing here, this is very, very rough. I'm just trying to literally plot everything so that everything's in its place. I did do this on the original, but I don't feel like I did it as well as I could have. But just plot everything. Don't worry about whether it's completely level or completely accurate at the beginning. Worry about that nearer the time. Once you get to a point where you've actually where you've put all the detail, you're starting to refine it and starting to just tighten up the picture, then you can worry about whether it's, is that 3D, does that 3D work, does that angle work, is that line correct? Then you can start worrying about that side of it, because you've got to that point where in the picture where you are actually, you know, ready to kind of finalize it potentially. But until then, don't stress yourself out with whether it's completely lined up. This part I think is okay, because you're just trying to make sure that the 3D works first. This is literally just the beginning part of it. You're not, you know, you're not. In a way, this is the boring part. To be fair, this part, if I'm going to flip this around a bit, this is kind of the boring part, because you're not doing anything. You're just drawing boxes and shapes and everything else. So this part can be very, very dull and very uncreative. But if you get this bit right before you get onto the main bit, you'll be much more satisfied with your end result, because you've done the groundwork. You've actually got everything where it should be and where it's supposed to fit. See, already I can feel that this ship does feel, the angle wise, it does feel as it should. Now I want to make sure that this lines up as straight as possible to the other side. But I might turn that music down a bit, because I have a bad feeling it might be drowning me out. So I'm going to change that in just a moment. But let me just do this. Get this bit done. Oops, don't want to get in the camera. Right. Let me just turn this music down just a touch. Right, so now straight away I can see that that's not quite level. So make that just a touch wider. Because I want the width to be more or less more or less right. But as I said, I'm not stressing too much about it being 100% at this stage, because I'm still trying to get the angles and everything else right first. Because the next part to this bit is actually putting in the shapes. And it is literally just putting in shapes. It's not anything else at this point. Okay. Okay, so that's the back part. Then there's a central piece, which literally goes inside. So this nose cone is going to be even thinner than it is now. So there's this little central pipe thing here. And as you can see, I'm just literally doing squares. I'm not doing anything, not doing any circles, not trying to do any ellipses just yet. The ellipses will come in time, but for now, no, I don't need the ellipses right now. Okay, so I think I've seen something that's not quite right. This angle here doesn't quite follow. This line doesn't quite follow that line here, so I need to make sure that it follows at least. That's it. Okay, so I'm going to flip this around just a touch. Now, if you've watched any of the other ones, hopefully you'll get an idea of what this is going to look like towards the end. I don't know exactly how this is going to turn out. It may end up being a completely different ship. Look like a completely different ship. I don't know. I don't want it to look like a completely different ship. I do want it to look different. Excuse me. And the reason I want to make it look different is one thing I have realized, which I mentioned, I think, in the last stream, is that when I've done the excuse me, got a bit of tickly throat there. One thing I've done when I've done these sort of streams or these sort of drawings competitions before, particularly if it's somebody else's artwork that I'm using as the base, I've tried to copy what they've done to the letter, so to speak. You know, in my head, I'm thinking I've added my own little flavor to it. I've added my own little touches, and there is a level of my own influences on those pieces. But ultimately, it's not. You know, it's, if you were to look at it and compare it to the original, you can see it's the same. And when I was doing the 2EE, the Space Night last week, and also the Atlas, there is a different element to it. They feel like a different character altogether. And it made me realize that I'm not making these my own. While obviously these are, I can't take credit for the original artwork, I can't take credit for the original designs and the story and all the rest of it, I can at least take the credit of saying, but this particular version is mine. This is my take on it, and it's my particular design on this particular ship or craft or whatever. And I definitely want this. Excuse me, I don't know why I got a tickly throat. On this particular one, I want this to still feel like the Rogue Star ship from JAZZA, but at the same time, I want it to be my version of the Draw with JAZZA ship, and that's what's important. Now here, for some reason, that's not adding up, and I'm not quite sure why that's not adding up. There's like an extra gap in there. I'm trying to work out why that feels different. Well, we've got the nose cone more or less, so that's okay. As I say, I'm trying to work out why that feels. It's just something that's not sitting right. I mean, I think that needs to be, again, still needs to be wider for some reason. Why? So this is the boring part of this process, but it's also necessary, really necessary to get this right. Because if this isn't right, everything else will not be right either. Because you look at the width of that, and that's much wider than it should be, but for some reason it doesn't look right. Well, for one thing, I think that's too long, so shorten that a bit. And it box in. I don't know, this bit just feels like it's too short for some reason. Don't know why. Okay, right. I think that's working now. I was just trying to get that working. I think that's what it was. It was just that line there wasn't indicating this line here. So there's a little bit of a gap, which is kind of what we want anyway, because there probably is a bit of a gap anyway. Okay, so there we go. So we'll give it another little gap here, just before we do the front part of the ship. Not that big a gap. So I don't know how much of this you can see right now, but hopefully you can see enough. Yeah, compared to the other ships, this is much more complicated a design. And I say I'm not worried about the shape of it, because the nose cone is a lot shorter. So I will do that in a minute, but I just want to get the basic segments, because I'm just segmenting it so we've got the different parts of this ship just to start with. Okay. There we go. Okay. And then the last part is all one big element. So now I want to make this slightly shorter than this bit. So let's just put a line here. Because eventually these lines are going to get gone. As long as I've got the gist of the front nose cone and the basic shape of the ship already. But I just need to get the size of it. Because the size of it correct first. For want of a better word, we're getting the proportions right, getting all the different scale correct. because in the past, something like this, I would just draw as I'm seeing it, and not consider the angles and what angle I'm looking at and which part of my eye is seeing which part of the ship and such and such and such. I'm trying to make sure that when I do any pieces like this or any future pieces, and I'm always trying, as I'm going along, I'm constantly thinking about, okay, if this was a real pitch, a real craft, and not just a drawing, what would you actually see? Right, so I think the basic shape of that looks okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do once over, just to get the boxes a bit clearer, and then remove any other lines that are distracting. So I'm going to quickly just do that, just to make it a little clearer. And this is just so that I can see where everything is. Because the ellipses are going to be the hardest part, getting them right. Ooh, careful not to bash the camera. I noticed I was doing that a lot last week, where I kept bashing my head against the camera, but I was wearing a cap at the time, so that probably wasn't the best idea. Now I'm trying to do this without moving the paper too much. I mean, I could turn the paper around, which is what I'm normally do. I probably will do for this bit, but I'm trying to move the paper, limit it as little as possible, so I'm not having to keep turning it around. But you need to sometimes do that to get to certain angles, because your body can't always get to all these different angles. You have to manipulate things to get to where you want to get to. For example, I think I can see now why this didn't look right, because this back bit did not look straight. Okay, so now that I know this, I can make that look a bit more like it matches. That feels much more like it matches. Okay, good. Okay. So that's that segment. And again, I got to make sure, whoops, that it is as aligned as possible to the other side. I mean, it's not. I mean, I'm not using a ruler, you might notice, and technically you should be using rulers for this. But I have a personal reason why I don't use them, and for me, I just find they get in the way too much. But that's my personal. This is my personal process. You know, this isn't the process. It's better if you do use a ruler, because you know for 100% you're going to do it. You get it there. But for me, in my process of, you know, any kind of artwork I'm doing, I find it easier for me to concentrate and figure things out without it, because I can see more. For me, I can see more clearly where it all fits, whereas a ruler hides it. But that's just my process. You know, I do recommend, you know, I do recommend that you do use a ruler. I do 100% recommend that you use a ruler generally. But if you find not using it, and that's your process, like me, that's fine too. At the end of the day, whatever helps you get from A to B to C the best, that's all that matters. Because the actual journey to get a picture from a blank piece of paper to what it's going to be, no one really cares too much how you get there. What they're looking at is the journey, is what the end result is, especially for those that are just enjoying your artwork. You know, they're more keener to see what it's going to look like than the actual process. Artists might be slightly different. You know, they'd like to know what your process is, and they might even enjoy watching the process. Some people are like that, and that's totally fine. Everybody's got their own habit, their own enjoyment. You know, some people like seeing movie effects, for example, how they make a movie, how the film was put together. Not everybody wants that. Some people like to keep the mystery, you know, the new magic mystery, a mystery. So it all depends on your personal, you know, your personal preference in that regard. But the long and the short of it is, people don't care so much about this part of it unless you're learning and you want to grow. It's the end result that really makes the difference. And if you have to use, I don't know, weird looking tools to get from A to B to C, then use weird looking tools to get from A to B to C. As long as your end result is what you want, what you're trying to achieve, then that's all that matters. And that's all that people are going to care about at the end of the day. They're not going to worry about whether you use a protractor to make a big circle. Whoop-de-doo, you know. who cares whether you used, you know, the most expensive looking ruler in the world? Doesn't make a difference. You know, whether you use a Copic or a Sharpie, whether you use paints or acrylics, it doesn't matter. You know, it really doesn't. You know, you look at like these artists, you know, like Rembrandt, all that. Do you think people were worried about what paints that they used to make it? Do you think that they go to these art exhibitions to see, well, he must have used the Stillman and Byrne set of art materials, or oh, he must have used Jackson Pollock's paintbrushes? They're not going to be worried about what brushes they use. They're going to worry about how you know, the actual artwork itself, and possibly the technique. But that's a painting thing. That's a different. What I'm doing. This is illustration. Now, if I did a different technique on it, maybe if I did it like in dots or something, then yeah, that's different. But it's the point I'm getting is, it's the end results that people are really more interested in than how you got there, unless you're particularly fascinated by that side of it. But most of the time, people aren't really that fascinated by how you got there. They just want to see what it looks like in the end. Okay, so I've almost got the base body shape there. Now this particular one will probably take a few weeks to do, because it's not going to be a small. It's a bit like the spacecraft I did on my Twitch channel. If you've been watching that Earth Dragon Twitch channel, the first spaceship I think took 3 sessions to do it. So this might take something in that region. Maybe not quite as much as that, but I think detail-wise, it's probably around the same sort of level. Okay, so we've got a basic shape. So just to recap, this is what I'm trying to get to. This is what I'm trying to get to in the grand piece of it. And we've got the basic sort of shape. So you've got the nacelles there, the little grating bit there, we've got a little tubular bit, and then we've got the inner shape there. In fact, I need to do that. I probably need to make that thinner actually, because looking at that, it's a lot thinner than I've made it. So I might just bring that in a bit more. But yeah, I think I will bring it in just a bit more, just to give it a bit more of a nice nose cone on it. But that's what I'm aiming for. So we're getting somewhere with it, but it will take a bit more work. So I'm going to bring this in just a fraction. Don't want to bring it in too much, because it's still quite wide. And then once I've done that, then I'm going to erase all the lines that I don't need, so that I've got a very clear indication of what I'm looking for. Oops, there we go. Right, go all the way up. Okay. All right. So let's just get rid of some of the other lines I don't need, so I'm not distracted by them. So all that bit there can go. I'm going to keep the central line in there because I still need that. This can go here. This middle line. Because what will happen is if I leave these in, I might start working on those as if they're part of the ship, and it's not going to work. And then those lines there. And this one too. All right. Now I think before I worry about this bit here, this bit back here is probably going to be the easiest part. The bit that's going to be toughest is actually the nose cone itself. Because if you look there, there's quite a lot of angles and shapes and everything else, and it's trying to portray that, particularly this front bit. So if I get this front bit right, everything else should be okay. So that's what I'm going to sort of target. So let's try and see if we can, whoops, let's try and see if we can get the, see how much we can get that done. And in fact, looking at the top, there's actually two angles to it, which I hadn't seen before. So this top bit is also angled. So here we go. Right. So that's the back segment that we were talking about earlier on. So let's put that line back in there so it make it a bit clearer. So I know where we're going. Just a little bit clearer. Okay. Now I'm doing this because I want to make sure that the size of the inner box is right first. Okay. Whoops, done that wrong. See, this is what I'm saying. See, I'm using that guideline. I used the wrong guideline there. It's here. So this is that back part. So let's erase this so I don't get distracted with that line because it's wrong. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to flip this around because I need to make sure that this part is aligned as well. So I know how far down the back end goes. Okay. Feeling the pressure now. Okay, now because I've done this extra line here, I can use that because I say there's a secondary angle. So I'm going to use this as the second part of the nose cone. So this is the second segment break. Okay. I'm stopping there because that's where it goes down. So again, like I did before, bring that down. And because of this level, it's going to be more or less the same. I might as well keep it on that same line. So it will stop here. Okay. So I know right now it doesn't look much, but it will. If you stick with it, it will develop. I can see that line is not quite straight, so I'm just going to make that a little straighter. Because I'm just going to make sure that it works. And that line is slightly off, the angle's slightly off as well, so I need to bring that line in as well. That's it. And then this comes out a little bit more because it's too far over. Remove this line. Okay. Now I know this is going to get angled, but I'm just doing this because I'm trying to make it clear where all the different segments are, because that's going to join up anyway. And then lastly, we want the nose cone Actually, yeah, the nose cone is the next bit. So this is where it's going to be tricky. Now, I'm going to suggest that this front bit is not completely invisible. So it's not completely right on this edge. So it's going to be slightly higher so that you can see just a touch at the bottom as it creeps through. I don't know if I explained that well, but that's what I'm going to suggest that's happened. Now, as I said, this is the bit that gets tricky. In fact, I'll tell you what, I'm going to do this quickly. I'm going to add those edges in now so that they're there. Have I done that right? Hang on a second. No, I thought so. I thought so. These aren't that far back. These are going to be in here, so I need to add an extra line in here. How far are we talking? Say about there, I think. Because I've got to remember that I want each piece getting smaller and smaller and smaller so that the nose cone looks really dynamic. And if it's too far over, it won't look right. Okay. So again, that's not, need to make that a lot more angled. Right, I've messed up this little angle bit, so I need to just make some adjustments. I told you this ship's complicated. It's a complicated shape. Okay. Now, here, so I think if I get a little box shape in the beginning first, so I can make sure the nose cone is more or less equal. Bearing in mind, obviously, someone's going to be slightly out of shot. Okay. Right, so here we go. And this now to see if this is going to do what I need it to do. Because I need these two lines to link up. As simple as possible. As with the other picture, I don't want to rush this and trying to get to the end result too early, because I'm trying to make an improvement on the one that I did before. See, this is where it becomes tricky, this part here. You know, does the angle work? Right, initially it's feeling like it is. I could be wrong, but I feel like it is. The angle is looking right. Cool. I think it is working. To the point where I think I can get the next stage. Right, okay. Now this is where it's a bit tough. I think that this, wow, they must have hidden those fireworks wherever they hidden. Okay, so this is where it's going to get a bit tough, because I need to make sure this line now matches up with the back. So right, so let me just get this right. So that's there. That's linked up with that. Okay. That links up there. Right, that's interesting. Okay. Right, so I'm gonna get this angle. I say it's this it's this whole segment here. It's trying to get that where it needs to be. Um, uh, 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 uh. Right, I'm just trying to work this out. Now I'm looking at that. I'm thinking that needs perhaps make this bit shorter. I think if I make this a little shorter than it is on the original, I think it might fit better. And in fact, one thing I've realized is this needs to be more angled, because this ship's all this kind of way, so need to make sure that angle is slight. So I'm going into silent mode again. Sorry about that. It's when I'm working something out. In fact, to a certain degree, the back end of this does feel a bit more angled still. Now, I admit the nose cone is a bit shorter than I wanted it to be, but I'm not going to stress too much about that. Right, I'm just thinking now where this is working. Oh, that's right. This is that nose cone bit, isn't it? Right. Okay. So that's this line here. So I'm just trying to work out where this is going to go. So I think the shape of this is going to change a little bit, just so that it fits better with the grand scheme of the craft. And I think if I give it just a touch of an angle shape, it will just add a little bit of an extra flavor to it. And I think it will gel better as well. That's just my personal thinking here. Ah, I've just realized something. This line shouldn't be there. It should be over here more. That's why the nose cone feels too big. This is what I was saying about the, getting the guides right, because when you get the guides right, you get the ship right. And I think I made this far too far over. Let me just check that. I think that's why this wasn't working the way I'd expected it. I wonder why there are fireworks in the middle of April. What's that all about? Okay, right, let me just flip this around a second, because I want to try and remove some of these lines here. Didn't even realize what I was doing. I didn't realize I was getting that angle wrong, that line wrong. But this is why you do it. This is why you have to rough it in. When you don't, when you just go straight in and you do it all, that's when you get it wrong. See, now the angle's wrong, but I'm seeing something, which is that, okay, so because I was trying to do that big square, this whole nose cone needs to shift over. So I'm going to put this central line in again, back in, to make sure that it's all in the right middle bit. So this nose cone, this little bit here, needs to be there. So, like I said, I want to kind of keep it so it's not right at the bottom. So it's going to be more here. At this angle, it's going to be a little bit more like that. And I'm glad I didn't go to the next pencil level, because if I had, it'd been harder to rub it out because it'd be too thick. And then this angle comes in a bit further. I was watching this this cartoon on TV today, and it looked like it was an English cartoon, English like CGI cartoon. It was based around football or foosball, the little table football thingy. And it wasn't the greatest cartoon, to be fair. I wasn't particularly, it didn't feel quite as interesting to watch as, say, like the Pixar ones. But it was decent enough, and I was watching, and it was while I was doing all my house chores and stuff like that. It was interesting enough, and then it got silly, which put me off the rest, watching the outcome of it. And basically, what the film was, I think it was called The Unbeatables. I think the film was called, and what it was is basically this. I didn't see the beginning, so I don't know the whole story. But this guy, the villain, lost a game of table football. The little, the ones where you spin the rods to make the guys kick the ball and stuff like that. That game. That was the game, and he obviously lost. So he was really upset that he lost, and he's one of those typical I love myself and I'm so amazing type characters. Okay. And so the premise was him in his jealousy and anger that he'd lost against this guy that was a bit of a nerd, and the usual kind of story. The guy that's always on his own, the unpopular guy, has to be good at something in particular just to get his fans or whatever, but not somebody if you was at school you'd probably be you'd pick on at school, that sort of a fella. Anyway, so obviously he lost the game, so he was upset, so he made this big plot and took over this village or whatever and stole the football game and stuff like that. And then towards the end of the film, or near the end of the film, he challenged him to a game of football. Naturally, being the arrogant villain he was, got all the best players and all, professional football players, because he wanted to do a real match rather than a table football match, which seemed a bit odd of a plot. If the game's about table football, then why don't you make it about table football? Why suddenly change it? So, oh, well, let's have a real match. So that already was like, hang on, where's this? That's a interesting change in direction. And then what he done was he got the most ragtag, randomly picked group of players, including a woman, a woman that has a has a man beard, to to compete against these professional players. And I just thought, this plot, whoever wrote this, I'm just speaking my own personal thing, and you might think differently, but whoever wrote this really didn't stick. To me, that wasn't very creative. It was the same plot and everything else. It just felt, yeah, we know what's going to happen. They're going to be complete. You got one big chubby guy. You got, I say, a woman with a a man beard, a guy that was basically a homeless guy, and you're just thinking, what? And then you got the guy, the nerd with glasses. I'm thinking, these are not guys that are going to be able to go into a football match and take over. Now, in the other film, Early Man, that kind of worked because it was so silly anyway from the get-go. You knew these guys from the minute that go that they weren't particularly great footballers. That's fine, but that had been set up from the beginning. But they didn't change the plot halfway through and say, oh, all of a sudden, yeah, we're going to play with tanks. To me, if the film was about a football game that you play on table football, why are you suddenly, first of all, changing it from, hey, let's play a real game of football? That's a completely different game. It's played a different way. It makes no sense. And then to do the whole cliche thing of, oh yeah, let's just pick the most random rubbish players who've never played football in their life, say someone like me because I don't play football, and compete against these guys. And you know what was going to happen? They would win somehow, some way. These crummy people that have no idea about how to play football are going to beat these professional players who have been trained and everything else. And I just thought, it's like they just tried to make the story work and make it appealing by changing the parameters at the last minute. And if it was, it just put me off. If it was a case of because just to add to that, I forgot to add to that, in the film as well, is because he was so upset and all the village was all damaged and all of this kind of stuff. He, his tears managed to make these football characters alive. So these little metal football players that you get in this game suddenly come to life, and I thought that's great. So you had the plot there, you had the characters, you had the guys there who could play the game, and they could have played a proper game. That would have been fine. So he had the parameters for doing it, and then you just change it to make it into an actual football game. And I just thought, why are you doing that? That would be like getting Toy Story. So all these toys are going off to save Woody or whoever it is they're saving, and then suddenly the adults say, "Don't worry, we'll sort it." It took away the key elements of the movie, the key elements of the film, the film was based on. You've taken it away, and I just stopped. I just lost my interest in it 100%. And I literally just stopped watching it. I thought, I'm not going to watch this anymore. I mean, I wasn't particularly excited about it in the first place, but that just really nailed the coffin, so to speak, because it just didn't feel like it was a sensible direction. And it's not often I stop watching a film, even if the film is pretty bad. It would have to be pretty garbage. I mean, really, really, really bad for me to stop watching it. And there have been films that I've watched like 15, 20 minutes, and I go, you know what? I'm not going to spend 2 hours watching this rubbish, especially if I don't know where it's going. Because there have been films I've seen in the past where I watch it for watch the whole movie. Film's great, And then you get to the final part of the film, and the ending's like, oh, so that's how it's going to end, or in some cases, not end. What is that about? And you just wasted these 3 or 4 hours watching a film that doesn't make sense and doesn't end properly. So I definitely didn't watch this particular football game just to see the end. The typical, oh yeah, they're going to win. Somehow they're going to win because, you know, the point is that it wasn't set up that way in the beginning. They suddenly set it up right at the end. Dodgeball, we knew that the guys from the beginning were a ragtag, rubbish teammates. Couldn't play dodgeball if they, if they tried. We knew that, so it was already set up from the get-go. This was not set up like that. This was set up with these little guys that came to life, and then they made it that natural people playing football. You're taking it away from the main characters. Why? You're adding characters near the end of the film that have never been in the film up until that point. Why? Don't get it. Whoever wrote that, please go back, rewrite it, do that ending again, and do it with the actual characters that you spent time trying to make look like toy football players. Stop putting human beings replacing them with human beings. It doesn't make sense, guys. Sorry, that's my little rant for the day. But yeah, I just was really surprised at the film. I'd not even heard of it. And it's no wonder it didn't do well in the cinema. Well, I don't think it did well because I don't even remember it even being out there. Because it was badly written. That part of the story just really killed it. And there was another thing as well that I didn't like. There was this character in there who was like a manager or a football manager or whatever, and he kept on saying, "What's your name?" "Oh, I don't know. Don't care anyway." And he kept saying this. It's like it was such a flippant line. It didn't work. It just felt like they put it in there because they just wanted to make it seem, "Oh, right, let's make it funny." And I'm sorry that, but the nail in the coffin was that little bit with the with adding making a live football match with human beings when you've got all these 22 metal characters who he's just rescued, and they're not going to play in the football. What? I just can't get my head around why they went that, why that was the direction to go in. It just didn't make sense to me. Anyway, but yeah, but I just wanted to share that with you. But that said, I am looking so forward to looking forward to Hellboy. I'm going to see that. Hopefully, see that very, very, very soon. So looking forward to that. I've been wanting to see a Hellboy for a long time, because although apparently I didn't know this, but apparently the Golden Army didn't do that well in the cinema, and I can't understand why. Because it's an awesome film. If you've not watched the second Hellboy, the Golden Army, it's so much better than the first one. The first one was good. Don't get me wrong. The first Hellboy was, with Ron Perlman, was really good. But the Golden Army was better. It was an amazing film. The visuals were more stunning. The storyline was more exciting. There were so many bits in it that I just thought the film was incredible. And it sort of shocks me that it didn't do that well in the cinema. I'm like, what? I can only presume that there was too much other competition out there, and maybe it was just too niche of a movie for people to want to watch it. Same with Judge Dredd, the what's his name, the Carl Urban version. If again, I don't think it did brilliantly in the cinema, but it's a brilliant film, especially if you're like me, who grew up watching, grew up reading Judge Dredd stories. It was an amazing film, and some of these films get, because all these big budget movies like the Marvel and stuff like that, these films often get overlooked because of the big budget movies, and it's a shame because some of these are just unbelievably good. You know, they're unbelievably good. In fact, one of the actresses from the Judge Dredd was actually in Game of Thrones. You know, she's one of the main characters. I don't know what her character is, so I'm not a big Game of Thrones person, so I don't know all the character names and stuff like that. But she's one of the main characters in the Game of Thrones series. So we're talking, you know, we're not talking like some unknown actors that have never done a, you know, who are just trying to get start in the industry. We are talking people who have shown that they're capable of performing, you know, doing some incredible work. But these films have been so underlooked. But the Golden Army, definitely, I highly recommend watching it, and I hope you won't be, you know, I hope you won't be disappointed. I mean, it might not be your cup of tea, perhaps, I don't know. But personally speaking, I thought it was absolutely brilliant film, and I'm sad that it didn't do well in cinema. I think it did well out of cinema, definitely, but in the theatres it didn't do as well as it could have. But it is actually really, really, really good, and I personally loved it. I'm going to be honest. I personally thought it was really, really enjoyed it. And you know, there are going to be films you're going to watch, okay, that you're going to like, but not necessarily love. There are films that I will watch over and over and over and over again because it's just brilliant. And there are films that I might watch again once in the blue moon, but not necessarily. Like if I feel like I really want to watch a really good movie tonight, what should I watch? The Golden Army is one of those films that I would watch if I'm really, you know, I only want to watch a really good film that I know I'm going to totally enjoy it and relive the whole experience again. Now, for some reason, that doesn't quite look right. I think I see the line. That's slightly off there. That should be that way. Now I'm starting to get to the point in this picture, so to detract from what I was just saying. I'm starting to get to the point now where I'm starting to refine it and add the details in that make this ship look like this ship, and give it its dynamics. As I said, today we'll probably only get to do the basic outline. I'm probably not going to get too much done today, but I want to at least get the ship looking, you know, at least somewhat like it should. Yeah, I think I need to bring that in a bit there. Bring that forward a little. Ooh. Wow, trying to get this line on point is actually a lot trickier than I thought it was going to be. Okay, sorry. I hate it when I get into these little modes where I'm trying to get it right and it's not quite working. I'm trying not to make this too dark a line. I want to be able to rub it out if it's not right. Actually, what I should probably do, just to make it easier, is to draw the center line like that. Maybe that will help just to plot it a bit. I'm trying to get I'm trying to also keep the thickness of this line better. Yeah, so the new Hellboy, really, really looking forward to what it's going to be like. I know that it's darker, so it's going to be a bit more gore, you know, not, well, I say gory, but more graphic than the previous outing. But in fact, I can see what's wrong. The angle's wrong here. But that said, so I'm just trying to work out. Okay, it needs to be here somewhere. But that said, it's meant to be a sort of a continuation, or or something from the previous version of the movie. So they've even tried to make sure that the character still looks like the Hellboy that's been established by Del Toro. So if you actually look at the makeup, it still looks like a bit Ron Perlman in style. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this line right, because I've done one like this one. Because I think with the original version, because there was a time constraint on it, I couldn't really spend the time really ensuring all the shapes is 100% correct. And to be fair, I probably was too ambitious in terms of the actual design of it as well. The poster, I was adding too much detail in the poster, but it was meant to be an epic poster. And I was working at the time as well, so it's another factor have to keep in mind. I was doing a full-time job, still doing a full-time job, but I'm not under any kind of time constraints to do this anytime soon, if you know what I mean. So I've got that flexibility to spend as much time as I need to get this right. And hopefully you can see the shapes coming out on this quite nicely. Okay. Now, trying to think here. That's fine. I'm just put this line here, this guideline, because these wing bits at the back, they do split. So I need to make sure that the split is as close to being accurate as possible. In fact, put the line there. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to use this line here to split up the front side energy, or I don't even know what the middle bit is for, to be honest. I don't know what the design what the thinking was with some of the aesthetics of the ship. I'm sure there was some kind of thought to it, but I don't know what that thought was. So those are the side funnely bits. Okay, so that's the middle, that's the side. That's the ridge. That's the main bit, and then the end. In fact, that makes sense to keep that at the end there. Okay, now this bit here is not as tall as the rest of it. So I need to cut it somewhere, say about there, I think. Oh, that's sorry, it's the wrong bit. That level is fine, just did the wrong piece. Oh, done that wrong. What am I doing? I'm messing up. Okay. I'm messing it up, man. I'm messing it up. I'll do it about there, I think. Now I'm going to draw through, even though I don't need to, because you can't really see that part anyway, but just so that I've got it in my head where it's supposed to be. So as I'm drawing it, I'm considering the other side. And you've always got to think of this these sort of things in 3D space. Okay. In fact, that square isn't, needs to be more square. Because there's going to be a circle going in here. Or on an ellipse even. This is interesting because I'm seeing now this is width of this is wrong, which might be why the back bit doesn't look right. I think this is why this doesn't look right, because that part was wrong. So now that should look a bit more accurate, hopefully. So move this line, move that line, and that line, I think. Okay, slowly getting there. Again, I'm just doing the basic shapes. I'm not doing any of the detail yet. As tempting as it is to dive straight in on the detail, I can't justify doing that just yet. So the next thing is to split these guys up. So I'm going to do, let's just make sure that these are as straight and accurate as possible, so that they're nice and equal shape and size. Try and make a dividing line at least as much in the middle as possible, because eventually this is going to get into split into two, but it needs to fit properly. So that's just this middle line, and now what I need to do is put two more lines in there, and this is to make sure that the gap in between, so there's a gap in between. There's not a big gap in this ship. It's not like the X-Wings that can, as far as I'm aware, where they can split and go all over the place. This looks like a fixed gap, but there needs to be as equal a gap as I can get it. That's it. And then across. Okay. In fact, what I need to do is bring this line through, actually, because the circles are going to go in there. So again, in fact, let's get let me move these lines, move these out of the way. And the only reason for this is so I can put a central line in both of these, make it, because I'm going to put a circle in here, and I'll make sure the circle is as central as I can make it, so that it works. So putting a cross in there. Now, when I did the original version, I didn't go to this much level. This is a really cool technique for doing circles, because it gives you a bit more of an idea if it's right. So if you get the cross right, chances are your circle will be a bit more accurate. It's not a complete science, but you know, it does help. Hopefully you can see that there's a relatively decent circle there. Okay. Now, although I can't see that box, I want to keep that box shape in mind. Do the same here. Okay, good. Well, I hope you enjoyed the stream. So if you do want to see more of this stuff going forwards, it won't all be JAZZA stuff. I mean, I will do stuff that's mine as well. The only reason I'm doing all these JAZZA pieces is because these are pieces that I started, either never finished fully, or to my satisfaction, where I felt like I didn't quite cut. Either my skill level wasn't at that point where, say for example, the anatomy or whatever, my anatomy wasn't the way I needed it to be, or in this case, the 3D angle wasn't where it needed to be. So some of it's because of that, and others is because the concept I had in my mind, it didn't meet the concept I had in my head, and I'm trying to portray those pieces the way that I had envisioned. Because there's a few pieces that I did that some I'm completely happy with, and I don't need to redraw them, and that's fine. Like the Knight Rider, I'm happy with that. Although I do have an idea, there is one piece I would like to redraw, one aspect of it I'd like to redraw. And some of the other ones I was fine with, but and there are some that I'm not even that fussed about whether I redraw them or not, because they were a difficult one to portray, and I have to think, do I really want to redraw that particular? Is it really worth me redrawing that particular competition piece? So there's some that I'm happy with, and I'm going to stick with it. But there are some like this one where I was happy-ish, but not happy enough. That's the perfectionist in me. I'm sorry. Like if I'm going to do something, I want to give it my absolute best in whatever I'm doing. And if my best isn't good enough, that's fine. As long as I'm giving my best, that's what matters. And this is certainly one of those occasions where, in fact, this gap is too big up here. This is certainly one of those occasions where, while I was satisfied with the outcome, I wasn't satisfied enough to let this picture lie. Same with the Color of Lost piece that I'm redrawing at the moment. I'm doing this off. That one's off. Doing that one off camera, and I'm going to be releasing that as soon as I've finished it. My particular version of events for that particular piece, but I will be doing some of my own work as well. So you will eventually see some of my own pieces of art coming into play. Now this looks weird. Is this right? Okay. So yeah, so if you do want to see more of this, and I say there will be more stuff that's my own concepts and designs and stuff like that, that is coming. And as I say, I've already sort of started working on some bits and pieces. Just click the old subscribe button, and then tick the little bell so that you get notified of any updates that I might come forward with. And I'd love to have you join the art posse of one right now. Well, maybe that's probably a bit of an exaggeration. It's probably an exaggeration. Right. But I do appreciate anyone that is watching, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching afterwards. I do appreciate your support and everything else. So, and I'm still sort of borderline on 90 subs at the moment. It'd be nice to kind of break that 29 sub cycle, but no pressure. If you're just happy to sit and watch, that's fine. But would be nice to, at least get past 29, which would be awesome. But I appreciate it. It's down to you guys if you like this, and I am trying to make these streams as interesting as I can be. So you know, I will continuously work to improve and make these better, make them as interesting as I can possibly make them. You know, I've been sort of learning some video techniques as well to try and make the speed art videos when I'm doing them a bit more interesting, and other videos for that matter. So I hope that over time these videos on the channel will start to develop. But any support by just simply clicking that subscribe would go a long way to give me encouragement to make them better for you and more enjoyable. So there you have it. There you have it. Wish this would stay still and not keep falling off. Right, so as I say, it's starting to take shape now. So if you look going back from where we were talking about, this is what it was before. This is the original design, and also my redrawing of the original design, just to show that I've redrawn it. But I'm trying to recraft it so it looks a bit more accurate, and certainly the angles feel more. If you look at like the nose cone, for example, it does feel much more even and accurate. So it's starting to get there, which is good. Now time is 9:15, so I'm probably going to stop fairly soon. But I want to get a bit further than this before I do call the stream. So so I'll do a bit more work on it, and then all I'm going to do is plotting things out in the right place. So in fact, this back bit is more of a thruster, so I can make that a little wider than what I've made it. So I can change that slightly. And then we got these two bits in the middle, so I'm going to just do it as one big block for now, just so that it's in place. I'm trying to get it so that it's even on the other side ish. Okay, that's not quite even. Why is that not even? Well, I think that needs to be wider. It's going to be about there. That's going to be about there. And let's split it as well. And then split again, because there's going to be a gap in between each. Because these are like rings around it. And then put a little gap there as well. Another little gap there. This probably doesn't, from your angle, from your perspective, this probably doesn't make any sense to you, what I'm doing here. But it will from my side of it. In fact, I did that wrong. It should be that side. Okay. So that's the back engine. That's the back of that. That's the little ridge. Can't really see that one too much. Okay. That's the ridge. Edge of the ridge. Now I'm going slightly further down because it is going to be off page. So not off page, off. it's not going to be complete, you know, complete. And in fact, it's going to come out there a bit as well. Although I probably should worry about this later on. Once I'm just plotting now. I'm getting ahead of myself. Again, getting ahead of myself. Maybe jump that did. Okay. All right. Now we've got a couple of bits, additional bits I need to add. So there's this little piece here, little inner engine. Now I will say, normally you'd have to wait till next Saturday to do this, but as I've got some time off, I probably will come back on sometime this week, Monday or Tuesday, perhaps Wednesday, maybe the latest, and not finish off, but do the next stage of this. So do keep an eye out. Appreciate you. Some of you may be at work, and that's fine if you are. I will try and make it late afternoon for those in America, if anyone from America is watching, just so that you know you got a chance to sit and enjoy it. But it will be will be on stream afterwards, so you won't lose. So even if you miss the live stream, you'll be able to catch up on the progress of this piece. But I want to make sure, you know, I'm doing as much of this as I can. During the week where possible, because I don't want to drag this particular one out too long, because there's other projects I want to do as well. But at the end of the day, this will take as long as it needs to take. Okay, well, this is interesting, this bit here, because I thought I was going above the bar here, but it's not quite done that. So I need to make this a little taller than I've made it, because this particular bit is sticking out above everything. But you can't always tell until you actually line it out. And this is why you need to plot these things. But hopefully, when you see the end results of this guy, this particular ship, hopefully it'll all make perfect sense. Why I'm doing this all first. Whew, right. So let's plot some more bits out. So this bit follows through, because on top of this, I've still got to do all the decals, you know, all the different design work on it. That's still to come. Now this bit here, I need to make sure that it's exactly right, because this doesn't feel like it's center to the actual ship as it should do. It's making me think that this line here is not 100% correct either. But I'm pretty sure that that's not right. Confident enough to do this. Yeah, it's definitely not. It's definitely not right. Which in a way is good, because now I can see that this was actually fine the way I had it. Anyway, so bring that down a bit more. Okay. Can still take a bit more off there. So I try not to use the eraser too much, because it's so easy to rely on it. It's so easy to rely on the eraser, and I know for me personally, when I just rubbed out every single little time I did it wrong, that's when I did it more. That's when I got more frustrated, because I might have had the perfect line, because I rubbed it out early. I didn't really give myself the chance to really understand. Actually, that was all right. That line was all right. It wasn't actually wrong. So I'm making this line a little thicker, because I want to make sure that it's central to the front of the ship. Okay. Doesn't feel 100% spot on, but it's okay. And then there's this thing at the front. I wonder who's messaging me. Yeah, I'm gonna also, as I said, this week I'm gonna try and see if I can get OBS to work on YouTube. If I can get OBS to work on YouTube, hopefully this will be a bit better, and I'll be able to have the microphone sounding better. So I don't know if the microphone sounds great. It didn't last time, but I have no means of checking. I did try to check it, and it wasn't really clear. Okay, so let's make a little box inside the box. In fact, let me move this one, because this one's distracting. And we did a little cross thing I did on the one I did earlier on. And again, this is just so I get that circle, or ellipse, I should say, as accurate as I can possibly make it. It's never going to be 100% perfect, but as long as I've got the gist of it in there. And then there's this circle one in here, which I can just draw like that. Okay. All right. Put the windows in. Maybe a bit further down, I think. So there's a couple of windows up here. I say I'm not going to go much longer than this, because it's already been a couple of hours already, so I'm not going to go on for too long. And then there's this little extra bit just at the base of the nose cone. Just trying to follow the contour as best I can. Obviously this will be slightly thinner. It's further away. Okay, so that's that little segment there. And then that's the window bit. two little extra bits there, and I split down the middle. Wow, I'm getting loads of messages today. Loads and loads of messages. Okay, now put some sort of window here. Let's do that bit first. I'm just going to try and give it a bit of an angle. This is a sort of small window, but it kind of carries on. So what I'm going to use the cone for this. Wow, I'm really popular today. What's happening? In fact, if I do this, I don't know if that's going to work. Actually, it does work quite well, actually. Gives it a bit of a different look. Now, as I say, at the moment, I'm doing this as accurately as it is on JAZZA's. And that's only because this ship is such an iconic one for the actual main piece. It wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be right for me to just radically change it for the sake of just making my own design. But I will, there will be some aspects that I will change on it, just so that it's not purely a copy. Okay. So we've got this thing at the side here that will vent. Now, probably what I'll do is once I've done all these little extra bits where it all fits, that's probably when I'm going to call it a day, and I'll come back to it later. And tomorrow I'm going to be doing some more work on the redrawing of the spacecraft that I was doing last week. So if you are a Twitch streamer or you've got Twitch account and you want to kind of see the next progress of that, I'll show you in a minute. I will show you what I was working on, so you get an idea of what to look forward to tomorrow. It's going to be around about 4 o'clock-ish UK standard time. So, for anyone that is interested in watching that process, it's going to be similar to what I'm doing right now, similar sort of project. The only difference is it's my ship. It's not somebody else's. It's actually my own personal designed craft. So it won't be a redrawing of somebody else's IP, so to speak, unlike this one I'm doing right here. So as I say, if you are interested and you like this one, like what I'm doing today, and you like what you're seeing so far, and you want to see a different ship tomorrow, if you join me on that. And in case you're wondering why I'm doing them separately, is they're separate channels and they're separate projects. So I felt it made more sense to keep them segregated, so they're not all, so I'm not doing all the same thing. So those people, for example, if you're just interested, if you only want to watch on YouTube, at least that way you're seeing one project on YouTube rather than coming in halfway and finding, oh, you've done more work on it. So I'm trying to keep them separate so that I'm not leaving any YouTubers only hanging or missing bits, and then you feel like, oh, I've cut you out the loop, so to speak, if you know what I mean. I don't want to do that. See, like there, I've just realised that this angle here, this bit right on that corner, isn't quite right. But this is why you have to plot these things. As as painstaking as it is, it's important. And then there's a little extra sort of box in there. Not quite sure why there's a box in there, but there is. But it's just the way it was designed. Okay. Okay, and that's that. And then, right, so we've got all these different segments. You've got these different segments here. And this looks like little windows, which would suggest that the ship is maybe a little larger than it seems. And there's 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. So I'm just splitting this into 4 segments. You know, the best way of doing windows is just literally draw a load of boxes, and then once you've done all the boxes, then inside each box, draw a little line and a box inside the box. It's the best and quickest way of making sure that it all kind of matches as much as possible. And I've just noticed that there's an extra thing here which I hadn't put in, which is there's an extra funnel thing. So let me stick that in. They're sort of just hidden behind the main part of the ship. So if I don't put it in there, I'll end up not putting it in and forget about it. So I'm doing that now before I finish today, so that it's there. There we go. Right. Let's make sure that we've got that on the opposite side. Now I appreciate this has taken a long time to get to this point, and we're long way from refining the details, but hopefully you'll understand and agree that it was important to take this step, you know, to make sure that that the shape is right and it matches the actual craft in the original piece. Okay, so I'm going to stop it there. I don't think there's anything more. I mean, there's stuff I can still do on it, but I'm going to stop there because I think we've gone on for quite a long enough today. So just to recap, this was the ship. Let me just show you again. This was the ship that we were drawing. Whoops. So this was the actual craft itself. This is the one that JAZZA drew originally, and even looking at this now, and looking at the one that his brother updated, and I think he's his brother. I could be wrong. You can see there's a lot more detail. There's a lot more going on with the craft. So these are the different aspects and angles of it. He did this on a 3D software, so you can see all the different elements of it. So he's obviously made it more intensive and everything else. Mine doesn't match it completely 100% the same, but that's the whole point. It's not meant to be exactly the same, and I can still, it's at a point now where I can still adjust it to make it feel more like this one. But for now, I'm going to stick with what I've got so far, and as I develop it and mold it, I'll make it into something better. So going from that, this was what my original version of that ship was like, and angles wasn't completely terrible, but it definitely wasn't very well angled. You know, some of the proportions were off, and if you look at the line work as well, the line work that I've done on it is a bit jagged, and it's something that bugs me. I don't like jagged lines. I'm very OCD when it comes to things like that, and this is where we're at the moment. So hopefully you can see that relatively clearly. In fact, I'll bring up the camera a bit so you can try and see it a bit clearer, hopefully. Try and see. So there we see it. So that's what it looks like so far. So it's got a bit of a way to go, and it still looks a bit bulky and clunky at the moment, but hopefully as I refine it and bring it in, it won't look as clunky, and it will start to look a bit more swish. Because there's, like, for example, here, this bit in the original, there's that, so there's that angle there, so I can add things like that to this just to give it. In fact, I'm going to do it now, so it's in there, so you just got that extra edge. In fact, I'm even seeing something which I can extend this, which potentially can make this ship bigger. So it's a little extra thing I'm adding. I know I'm not doing what I did earlier, but I'm just doing it to add it in. But you can see where I'm going with this. It will eventually start to look more like the original, but it will still have my feeling to it. But before I go, let me show you what I was working on Twitch the last few weeks. Let me just bring that around for a second. Try and find the actual original artwork, which is somewhere around here. That's that one, and that's that one. No. Yeah, so the last few weeks, these are some of the ships that I've been working on the last few weeks. This is my tri-zone craft, which is a triple side craft that I redrew into this particular design, which is very Star Trek feel to it. So that was kind of just a scrappy throwaway image, but I liked it and I kept it, redeveloped it, and that became this one. There we go. So that became that one. I still need to take off the pencil lines, but I'm much, in comparison to the original, which was this one again, just to sort of show you the comparison, hugely different, and it's got a lot of detail on it, and I'm really, really satisfied with how this has come through. In fact, one thing I haven't done, which I need to still do, is I need to thicken the lines on it, but I'll do that. I will do that off stream on that, so I can just refocus and get that one right. The other one I worked on, which is an even older picture. This was, I can't think what year this was, but we are talking sort of round about the 80s, somewhere 80s, early 80s, somewhere around that. This is my TriStar craft, similar sort of concept to the other one, but very much more, I don't know what you would call it, but very sort of 70s. Oh wow, that was some nice fireworks over there. Some 70s sort of style craft, and that one so far has turned into this character. Very different in style, very different in general sort of image. So if I can show you, so you can see both. Try and do it so you can see. So I'm just trying to see it. So there you go. Okay, let me shift that there. There you go. Yeah, so very different in style to the original one. I do still like the nose cone a bit on this one more, but you get the sort of idea of what I'm going with this, and I'm trying to make these so that they're an improvement on the previous with a lot more detail. One of the biggest things I like about this particular version is this part here, this little bit just underneath the wing. I like that a lot. In fact, I'm even thinking that I should make this, just more prominent, that this is the front end of the craft. But that's sort of where I'll be going with it. So yeah, so that's the stream for today. Thank you very much for watching. Again, hopefully you've enjoyed watching the process so far. I didn't, would have liked to have gone a bit further today than I did, but you can't always predict these things and everything else. But I will come back to it. You will see some more of that, and I will eventually get to the point where it's fully inked in like this one. Again, just to go back to, so it will be like this one, and I will thicken the lines on this one as well. And I say, if you do want to see more of this sort of work, if you do like sort of sci-fi pictures, I don't see many people out there doing sci-fi stuff, so hopefully it's something that I can bring to YouTube and do, be more that way inclined and bring more of this kind of style of artwork to the foray. And if you do like it, do click on the like button below. Share it with anyone that you think that might enjoy this particular art, particularly if they're like me, you're big into sci-fi. And don't forget to ring the little bell and the subscribe button so you get notifications of any live streams or any videos that get released. And there should be a video coming out this coming Tuesday around about 7:30 UK standard time, and I will be on Earth Dragon just start on its own on Twitch tomorrow around about 4 p.m. 4:30 tomorrow. And again, this is YouTube time. But until the next time I see you guys, have a lovely weekend, day and night, and I will be seeing you. Bye bye.